Conversations on Campus.
Hello, everybody. Here is Ahmed, and welcome to an episode of Conversations on Campus. And here I am having Vladislav Siyutkin, who is a student at the School of Advanced Studies, the Tyumen, Russia, and who is also a third-year student who writes right now a thesis paper on pensioners' politics. And so, Vladislav, can you please tell us about your paper?
Yeah, but before I'm going to tell you about the paper, I'd like to say that it's actually a very ironic name, especially in these conditions for our podcast. Like we are on campus, supposedly. Yeah, I'm glad actually that there is no campus, but we can create this nice atmosphere and feel intimacy even in these isolated conditions. Yeah, about my paper, probably I would say that it's really concerned about isolation and feeling intimacy with the society, with everyone, intimacy with history and anything basically, because I'm writing about human contentious pensioners. These are people who, despite a lot of restrictions, either physical restrictions or social restrictions or some cultural stereotypes about them, they are happy enough and maybe brave enough to surmount, to overcome these restrictions and go out and say something which is worrying them, which is important for them. And what I like especially about this topic is that it's all about politics. Yeah.
Okay, that I know that you have done some interviews, and I would like to ask you, like, what did you expect before going to an interview with any like with any of the members of the parties you interviewed before? So, what did you expect? What the expectation did you have? Did you have any actually or none?
Yeah, I would say that before making an interview, it's a part of qualitative sociology. You need to integrate yourself into this field, into the environment where your participants are existing and cooperating. And therefore, I was familiar with many of them, and I have interviewed several of them. And of course, I knew something about their mentality, let's say, about their personal life stories. And what I was expecting from interviews is to deepen the understanding of their actions and to look at their broader biography. And especially what interested me is to look at the background life of these people, because public sphere is the only thing we can observe. So yeah, I was interested in looking into their lives, and also I was eager to know some opinions of them, because you know there are a lot of stereotypes we have, at least in Russia, about these old people, and most of the stereotypes could be summarized or reused to the word conservatism. And what I expected, yeah, is to see something opposite actually, because I think that if this tiny minority of people is doing something which is not usual in Russia, I mean political protest, so their views will be accordingly unusual. And yes, I was expecting to look at it.
Okay, so Vladislav, like it's really interesting for me because I know you personally in a way because we are friends, and I know that your opinion in a way on the current situation in Russia, that you think that Russia lives in the moment of politicalization of Russia in a way, and here, so what actually the message that those pensioners actually have? So do they actually like demonstrate some aspects that aspects are against the current discourse, the current Russian political discourse, or what actually their message is about?
Yeah, I would say that their message is, first of all, is totally depoliticized. So that's actually one of the main findings, though it's kind of banal one, because we have a kind of tradition in Russia of these researchers dedicated exactly to depoliticization, because it's not a rare case in Russia when we see the protests, for example, last year in Yekaterinburg or in Shias, which is highly contested with political issues. But at the same time, when we are approaching people and asking them, what are you doing? They say that actually politics is a dirty thing, right? But at the same time, they are very well aware of politics in Russia, but they do not consider themselves as politicians and their actions as political. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, okay, I'm supposed to be neutral, right, as a researcher. But anyway, unfortunately for me, the same tendency has been observed in case of pensioners. So yeah, they are doing political things. I mean protests. They have very strong opinions on the political agenda. They're very well aware, and at the same time, they tend to think that politics is a dirty game. Of course, with some exceptions, because there are people who are ruling some organizations, like of local groups of Communist Party or something like that. Yeah, the leaders say it's about politics, but the members, the activists, they do not consider themselves as political beings, political actors. Yeah.
Yeah, but the problem is here is that just the question always pops in my mind that are they heard, and if so, yeah, to what extent actually they are heard?
Yeah, I would even exaggerate this question and say that the point of their political activity is not to be heard in a sense of delivering their messages and then pushing the government to make reforms. Of course, rhetorically, they aim exactly at making changes in the world or bringing socialism and Soviet values back, for example. But in fact, if we go deeper and deeper in these conversations, if we analyze the interviews, so we can see that actually these people do not believe in the effectiveness of their activity, and they do not tend to change the strategies of this activity. And that's not because they're stupid or conservative, but rather because the imperative, the incentive to act for these people is deeply flowing from moral and emotional categories. So they have these ideas in mind, these feelings. They felt abused. They feel the necessity to act. But this necessity to act is not supposed to be resulted in real result, in reform or something like that. So it's not about even of being listened to as consultants or as citizens and to change something, but about overcoming this bubble of isolation, about being heard in a real, I would say, humanistic sense. Because some pensioners, it's about more intimate relationships between us, say that we have no one except you to tell these stories. And that's, I think, a real social problem. So besides they have children and grandchildren, they cannot discuss the topics they feel relevant, because these topics are about society, which has disappeared, I mean Soviet society, about themselves, and they have lost themselves with this society as well. And therefore, you know, it's really might seem like not being about politics, but about morality, about psychological feelings, about something like that. But nevertheless, I would say that political demands is rhetorically one of the main goals for them, right? Because after meetings, they have these long petitions that we will send to government, that we demand A, B, C. It's usually about taxes and something else and reforms. Yeah, but again, I think I answered your question.
Yeah, but actually that's a very interesting, because it's my first time actually to hear like some people who want to demonstrate or want to protest, and at the same time their intention is not to change anything, but rather than is they try to emphasize the awareness of people. And but here lies another question, is that okay, so they told you like you are the one who's carrying our message, at least like to some extent. But right now, do you actually share with them the same goals? Like, don't you think that actually the society needs to have like to have a change, you need to change the whole political discourse as a young person in Russia anyway. So
Mhm.
so here, maybe right now, you don't share with them the same intention, but you want to understand their position because they are more experienced as well. So here, what actually do you feel afterwards? Do you think that you are going to carry their message, but you are going to do something, or what are you going to do?
Yeah, I think that first of all, their message might seem problematic for me because of, I don't know, because of these guys, for example, especially this one. So I could not agree with them about all the views because some of them are really orthodox Marxists, and this orthodoxy consists of patriarchal values about some traditional views on how society should be operating, with which I disagree, of course. But about the message, I'd like to tell a short pre-story of this project. So. Since I'm really in love with my grandmothers, I really like to discuss with them anything, and especially some historical aspects of their personal life. I mean, how the history frames their own life, and so on and so forth. Uh, I I began to think 1 year ago that actually it would be interesting to listen to people outside of my family, because the amount and the density of political and socially significant events during the second part of 20th century is really tremendous. And therefore I began to think of creating a media project which would consist of a set of interviews recorded on camera. It was before coronavirus, of course, and where I, the representative of new generation of youth, will be trying to build the bridges between our generation and their generation, and make it in a form which would be approachable for people like you and me and other guys of 20th and slightly above and down. So that was the idea, and then it has been transformed to the research. Of course, as it's evident now, I was thinking about this idea that their messages are brilliant to be carried to new generation, but it's the question of framing. So how can we explain to I don't know, to these guys like you and me, that people who believe that Stalin is a great leader, that they're not crazy, right? Because for us, it's absolutely evident. I mean, great terror and etc. etc. How can we believe that these people are worthwhile to exist in our society, are worthwhile to be listened to and to be learned from? To it's a crazy idea, right? But still I have this message, and I think that one of the societal consequences of my research is exactly to draw attention to the problems of these people, to the mentality of these people, to the stories they tell. Yeah.
But again, you
Sorry?
see, yeah, but again, so as you see here, again, you still need the bridge. And what do you think actually, what can represent the bridge here? Do you think that maybe like, yeah, of course, launching a program, the media program you actually thought about, that might help. But at the same time, you need some sort of a common language between them, because you have on the one hand those people actually who see you, because you told me before that they do not actually idealize Soviet Union, but at the same time you are saying right now that they do idealize Soviet Union, at least one leader of them. And on the other hand, other people like the youth of Russia, they actually hate, they resent these times. So what the common language they have to speak first in order to have the bridge between them?
Brilliantly framed question. I mean, you are pointing to to this contradiction in Russian mentality, because we do not still we do not have a consensus about Soviet past and about Stalin himself, and therefore, yeah, it's a potential place for conflict, for fightings between people, especially of different generations. But I would say that these people are idealizing Soviet Union, of course, to some extent, because of one interesting historical binarity. Look, when the Soviet Union was collapsing, there was this liberal criminal band led by Yeltsin and his guys, who were trying to destabilize the situation and to impose, to bring new set of values, to build new economy, and so on and so forth. And therefore, and of course, they were criticizing Soviet values and Soviet order a lot. And therefore, you have this binarity, right? Either you are pro-Yeltsin, Yeltsin followers, and you know that after that we have 90s, and I believe you have heard a lot about 90s in Russia. So if you will be criticizing Soviet Union in this binarity, you're automatically where? You're automatically with Yeltsin and his bandits, right? So that's kind of impassibility of the situation. You are in a deadlock, right? And therefore, these people do not have, I would say, the freedom of choice in this rhetorical struggle. But we have very nice opportunity now to consolidate all the society in the way of protest, which would lead from the discontent of life. Very simple. So what me and these people have in common, despite some socialistic ideals, and what other people have in common with us, is the disagreement with policy of our government. It's feeling really abused, because in Russia we know, you know, the information is circulating widely and very intensively. We know about corruption, we know about abuses, we know about everything, and these pensioners have internet as well. So we share at least this context of disagreement, and I think that it would be the basis of social solidarity in terms of different generations. We are united by the idea that we are disagreeing with government. That's the point.
Yeah, but okay, so that's brilliant actually, and it's and but let me actually intensify the conversation a little bit and problematize a little bit your suggestion. But right now, if I'm going to do that, I would like to take the position of the government. For
Come on.
example, yeah, for example, just a couple of days ago, when Putin spoke to the nation, you know, about the current crisis of COVID-19, that, and he mentioned something really, a fact, that Russia is really a huge country, okay, and the people. So yeah, you see here, so that's actually problematizing everything. Yeah, Russia has a little bit like a small population, like 140 million people. It's not that big, I mean, in comparison with its size. Yeah, but at the same time, this size really allows or even permits corruption, permits that you need to be slippery a little bit when it comes to leave the local federal management to to manage their own state according to their own rules, and at the same time you open the door there for corruption as well. So here, that's a really huge problem. So what Putin does, for I don't know, for all of your lifetime, by the way, he's just right now satisfy everyone in the on the expense of maintaining the borders as they are. But other people look at you as a young person who just looks at Russia and they see Moscow or St. Petersburg. They feel like, no, we can't give the country to those people, despite the fact that Putin, for example, is, I don't know, Putin government is corrupted or whatever you would like to say. But at the same time, they fear that you are going to lose the country. You are going to lose, and to give, and this country is going to suffer from separation or political separation or whatever, name it, because Russia consists of a lot of republics in a way. So here, really, the situation when you speak about geography and you integrate it into the conversation, you really find the problem is huge, and you just can't run demonstrate on the street and to make a protest without taking into consideration such an element. So here, what you actually want to say?
Yeah, plenty of things. I like these messages which convey like tons of stereotypes simultaneously, because that's exactly what I'm facing during all my life and all these studies. So first of all, the argument about geography would be easily defeated by this simple notion that Soviet Union, the ideal of these people, I mean the mythological ideal to some extent, was consisting of 15 states, right? And what these people are usually appealing to is that the order was everywhere, right? So Stalin had 14 more republics to take care of, to observe, but the people were committed to the communist ideals. They were really decent. They were gone through this turmoil of revolution, civil war, and Second World War, so it was morally inappropriate for them, and especially upbringing and socialization made their contribution as well. So despite the country was huge, the order was everywhere. And here we can bring the ideas, I don't know, about global expansion of communism, right? And it doesn't imply having a global government, right? We have right now, maybe some would say. So the scale doesn't matter, these people would say. I would add from my perspective that, for example, look at the, how is his name? Mishustin, probably, the new prime minister of Russia, which is presented as great man by Russian mass media. And note what he was awarded for by appointing to this position. He has, how to say that? When you can trace how the money flows via digital devices, like his merit is digitalization of tax system. So he knows about every cup of coffee sold in our coffee shop Disciplina in SAS, right? And he has created this system which would be attracting new and new taxes for the government by using technologies. And we know a lot about fighting with extremism in Russia. Hi to these guys observing, watching for our conversations, and I don't mean viewers. Yeah, and so it's very easy to make an order, or at least to be aware of things if you want to. And the problem here is that I believe that our government and maybe president himself are very well aware of the disorders happening. Why do not they prevent them? Probably because they have some stake in it as well.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, you actually spot me there. You put me on the spot when I brought for like to you stereotypes. But again, you see, I would like actually again to bring another stereotype. And do you actually trust the youth of Russia? Don't you think that, I don't know, they are overrated? What do you think?
The youth?
Yeah, like people like you. Do you trust your generation? Yeah, because it's here. That's what you suggest. That those are the people who are going to be the leaders of of Russian nation in a way, or of this huge country. So do you trust them? Because that's a different question. I understand, but right now they need to be very respectful to the past of those people you are interviewing, to those people actually that you are right now having the experience with them. So to what extent do you trust them? Because I know your opinion on that, but yeah, let's see.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether the opinion I have told you once is relevant now, but probably could you be the first who says my opinion about youth? I mean, just to verify whether we are on the same page.
Yeah, but no, actually, no, I would not mention that right now because it was off the record. Okay, but yeah, let's see. Like, yeah, maybe you are going to impress. Like, I mean, you are going to surprise me with a new answer. But let's see.
Okay, but answer this question. Was I critical and even cynical about this generation? Or
yeah,
not?
you were so cynical.
Okay. So maybe I wasn't so sociological as I am today, but yeah. We need to accept that circumstances, the environment the individual exists in and develops in, have a tremendous impact on this individual. Because the simplest example would be the mass media, right? Because the researchers of one of our professors in SS, actually, Maxim Alukov, has conducted brilliant research, which shows that when people are directly asked about their political preferences, they tend to use the expressions circulating in mass media. They do not reflect upon them, they just say it. And we can expect that in political arena or in depoliticized arena, people will act accordingly to these stereotypes, to these norms dictated by mass media, for example. Yeah, and also the process of socialization is in the hands of the state in Russia to some extent. I mean, the system of education, for example, the army, and etc., etc. Therefore, I would be very accurate in blaming the individual or in putting the whole responsibility on this individual. So I would like to propose, and I would like to say sorry to all people who have ever heard from me or was the subject of this criticism that you are not, I don't know, you are not active enough, you are not conscious enough, because social environment shapes how you think, how you act to some extent. But of course there is a responsibility on you, Ahmed, on you, dear watchers, and on me. And once we have acknowledged that we can do something, that we understand something, so we have to do, we have to act, exactly. And about the generation itself, I would say that it's really diverse, and the people growing with internet, with various sources of information, they do not believe propaganda anymore. They can understand the information. They're very, how to say, discernful, like when you can distinguish, to discern, right? And the problem here is, of course, that there are a lot of unconscious things we cannot reflect upon, which structure our mentality and our action. But yeah, I believe that this generation will do something unless they will be taking, how to say it, mortgage, right? When you need to buy an apartment and you are making yourself a slave for 30 years. So there is, I think, the only way for the system to chain these people, right? But otherwise, they're free and we will be free. Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, because I do not want actually to take more of your time, but I have one last question. Do you think that the future is bright? I mean, the Russian political situation, do you think that the future of it is bright or not?
Wait, I need water before answering this question.
Yeah,
okay.
Adding drama to the situation, yeah.
Because the cup is empty for 20 minutes now. Yeah, it's a historical question, right? How can we predict something? And the only way is to try to take into account all the possible factors and see how the combination will influence the future processes. But I would say it in regard to the benchmarks and to this research and to this methodology. So in my research, I'm trying to do exactly this. I'm trying to see how in people's stories there are different factors combined, and how people understand these factors which influence them. And I think that the ideas of solidarity which are pronounced by these people, the ideas of social justice implied by these people, they are common among all people. I mean not only Russians, because extensive research show that, and we at least we want to believe that people are not competitive in their nature. They are not tended to fight. They are not tending to worsen others' life, and I really believe in that. So the Russia is not an exceptional case here. I believe that some social movements will be negotiating and joining others, that the regime itself will be hurting itself, that the capitalism will, you know this old story, right? So yeah, I believe everything is going to be fine, but the responsibility is really on us. So we can be observers, we can be thinkers, we can be mental contributors to these reforms, but I would like everyone to be also an actor. Of course, it doesn't mean that you have immediately go to protest and to shout something, because because you may be a fool, right? So you have to understand more, and by understanding I mean not reading tons of articles and books or listen to these podcasts, but rather to compare the information you get with the events you are going through, you as a person, right? And the feelings of your body, the ideas coming to your mind, because there is usually a contradiction. So you hear people, they they think about their realities, or the realities they would like to be represented, right? But there is something about your own life, and from your own life, from your own condition, you can jump to actions. At least make changes in your own life, in your family, with your friends, record their podcast as Ahmed did. So that will be a contribution.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I really can't say anything anymore or ask you any questions, but I would like just to recap a little bit, because right now what I sense is that you already, like, you were someone who was a bright person who looked at the society, but once, and you had some beliefs, but once you actually you were in the event itself, you experienced the demonstration, you experienced the protest, and this public discourse started to question your own faith, it started to question your own beliefs, and that made you somehow look at the society differently. And that's actually uh, how powerful those protests are. And as far as this discourse where goes in a healthy in a healthy atmosphere, I am sure that it's going to carry out the society to a better place. But the problem is that you need, as the yeah that I am, as you know, like, I'm always critical of people intention, stuff like that, because you do not know to what extent actually they are critical of the situation, and that's a huge problem, of course. And here you actually assume that at least if those people are heard, a lot of people, they are going to assimilate their opinions, they are going to absorb it, and they are going to understand what others think about, and maybe they are going to say, you know what, I'm not alone. Even if this person is an old man or an old woman, I am not alone, and I can actually contribute, and I can go to them and speak with them. At the same time, you also take into consideration how right now the technology advances also blocks or somehow puts obstacles against these movements, and that's absolutely fantastic, because right now you are not only aware of the other opinion, but of the pensioners political discourse, but at the same time you are aware of the other actions of the government. And that's but what makes you a little bit of observer right now, but you plan to take an action, and that's really good. And you see and you observe, like, how mass media right now works to change the people's opinion or something like that, as you mentioned, the Maxime's research. That's a pretty nice, and that what makes actually your research interesting, at least for me, and I'm sure that it's interesting for a lot of people. But yeah, and I want to just to recap some of the ideas you spoke about here, and I have no actually further questions, and
Yeah,
I'm thankful for you, Vlad, for joining me today. And I'm
yeah.
sure that whoever is going to hear us, or who's going to watch us, is going to think about your words.
I have an idea, Ahmed.
Yeah,
Probably, as far as you are recording conversations on campus, and campus is supposed to be a place where people exchange their knowledge, maybe we can I can suggest something which would be useful to our audience, to everyone actually to know. So there is the term from sociology, from the methodological part, which is called participant observation. It's a method we use in sociology, and the idea of this method is evidently to participate in something, but at the same time to preserve this distance, to be able to analyze it, to think about things, and to be critical and maybe cynical sometimes, right? So I would advise to everyone really to use these participant observations in any situation possible, and you will understand the society, you will understand yourself, and you will understand more about the conversations on campus.
Yeah, thank you, Vlad, so much. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope that also you enjoyed it. And yeah, so thank you so much.
Same Ahmed. Chokran so much. Yeah.